right, welcome to 6 Minutes. Jason Fulmore, SE Wrestle, here with Jaxon Pablo Bast. Jaxon, how's it going?
It's going well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. And we just had a conversation about 5AHSAA, so we're not going to rehash the top of that conversation. If you want to hear a little bit about Jaxon's background and where he is now and all those sorts of things, you can go on over to the 5AHSAA. But to start this one off, let's go ahead and plug what your website and your handle is and all those sorts of things for people that are interested in Alabama wrestling through you.
Yeah, so I've got a website, an Instagram, and a YouTube. You can reach me on Instagram at Bama Wrestle, and then the website is BamaWrestle.com. And my YouTube, if you look up Alabama Wrestling Forums, which I know it's a mouthful, but if you want to get good content, that's just what you got to do.
That's right. That's right. And Jaxon does make some great content. He still has a great connection to Alabama, even though he's wrestling out of state right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 1A, 4A state duels now. And I'm going to flip it over to a screen share and all of that, so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. But before we get to that, general impressions of 1A, 4A. Teams that you kind of know about and you're kind of paying attention to?
Yeah, and the first one popped up when we were prepping for this one, and you showed me Bayshore Christian. Now, I think that's an untapped coach that I'd never heard of until I went and looked up. Coach, I don't know what prefix he would like. Coach Dr. Timothy Durlan is the head coach down there. And I had no idea he was an All-American at Purdue. He's coached at 3 different Division I universities. And then he coached Augustana to a high finish at the D2 national championships one year.
Yeah. And he's got a little son that's a little bit of a hammer.
Oh yeah. That's actually, I found it. I was looking for pictures of Zeke, and I couldn't find any until I was looking at the parents' Facebook, because I know the parents' Facebook always has pictures.
Nah, you're right. And that's, so SE Wrestle, for everybody who doesn't know, I cover the Southeast, but that's one of those markets that, parents, they post a lot of stuff, and you want to see stuff. They're the ones who are the ones who are going to kind of let you know kind of what's going on within the wrestling world and their schools and things like that. All right, so let's, I'm going to share the screen here and jump on over. And because I'm not too terribly literate at technology here, Jaxon, you're going to tell me that we can see this, right?
We can see it.
All right, awesome. Okay, so right here we've got the 1A, 4A first round and quarterfinals. Same sort of bracket as 5A, 6A. Actually, the same bracket as 5A, 6A. And we've got several that are on Thursday. That's tomorrow. That's those right there. And then Friday. And actually, we have a Saturday duel here as well, which is a little interesting. And then the semifinals next week, with the finals being on Friday. And we'll get back together and have a conversation about those in the future. So this is the bracket. And you can see that something must have occurred with St. James and W.S. Neal and Asheville and Prattville Christian Academy, because it looks as if those 2 teams have already advanced. Could be COVID related. I don't know. Could be injuries. Could be something else. I have no idea. But it looks as if, and we're going to go ahead and assume that they have. Do you know anything?
No, the only things that, like I said, came to mind were COVID, or maybe they got so like they did with all the bowl games. If you don't have a certain amount of players, I know that if you don't have, I think it was 7, you weren't even eligible. So I don't think they would have put them in the bracket if they weren't eligible to begin with. So. Okay.
All right. So let's jump on down here. We've already talked about Coach Durnlin and the little 106-pounder Zeke Durnlin. They were the Region 1 champs, and they get to pull Reeltown. And is that how you say it? Do you know?
It's Reeltown.
Okay. And then you've got St. James and W.S. Neal, and we already talked about St. James, but we'll get to that in just a second. So let's take this one to begin with. We obviously see there are quite a few holes, not surprising for a very small 1A, 4A team. Filling those weight classes are always really important. Because Bayshore Christian has tough kids, but also has these holes. Are you feeling one more than the other?
I try to count up the forfeits real quick. Because like you said, the Durnlands are very, very impressive. I know they have a very solid heavyweight in William Rayner, who did a fantastic job of the first tournament of the season at Gulf Coast. Now I don't know if those holes are going to end up catching them in the end, because they're only having to give up three. They're only having to give up 60, 26, and 32 because the forfeits fall that right way. So I think it's
unless Reeltown bumps one of their 20s up to 26, bumps one of their 26s up to 32, and bumps Salter up to 38, then you could have a different thing. But you're right. It's one of those situations where the path for a win for Bayshore is much smaller because of holes. But they have some solid kids, and you already just mentioned William Rainier. I think is it his younger brother? Do you know, at 120?
I would assume so.
But you don't know.
School, but I
don't know either.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen either of these two teams wrestle?
No, I know Reeltown has a youth program, and they've been on the come up over there, because I think Reeltown is one of the coolest names of a city I've ever heard. I'll be interested to see where some of it ends up lining up. Like you said, if you're wrestling smart, you're probably bumping up kids, because I don't see too many. I see a couple ranked wrestlers, but not too many.
Right.
So
right.
you're not trying to battle for the number 2 seed at state or something. So
right. Well, and to, again, for those individuals who might be sitting in the stands watching, watch little 106 Zeke Durnland. He's a tough little wrestler. Certainly somebody to watch. Over on Reeltown, I've watched Omari and Pons wrestle before at 152. That would be somebody that I would be paying attention to. Is anybody I missed that you might want to shout out or we should pay attention to?
No, not really. I don't see anybody I would have missed.
Okay. All right. Jumping on down here, it looks like St. James is already advanced. We're going to go ahead and make that assumption. I don't know why WS Neal is not in it. But I think we can probably feel pretty confident that St. James is one of the top programs, or one of the top teams in 1A, 4A regardless. So any of these 3 other teams within this quad are really going to struggle to beat St. James. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that, what we're seeing here is that WS Neal has, what you could assume is a full roster, and they were able to take out, or that Bayshore Christian was able to take out a team with a full roster.
Right. So that should tell you that don't look past them, because they probably can meet back up with St. James in that next round.
But I don't see St. James losing to anybody in the quad. They've always been a really solid team in Montgomery.
Yeah.
So.
Let's go ahead and just pick out a few names that, if anybody gets a chance to watch St. James, a few kids that kind of stick out to you that somebody should pay attention to.
Obviously, I recognize some of these names, like Corley, obviously Hartson, really good. Granger Hicks, always a top 5. Jay Cuff at 52, Ariel July at 170, Clayton Kraft at 82, and then whoever, I've seen both these kids at 95 wrestle at the moment 82 last year.
Yeah.
So I could see it. So.
Yeah, no, and I think you picked out exactly the ones that I was thinking of, and probably the ones. Now, you did rankings for 1A, 4A, is that correct?
I did.
Okay, so those are some of the kids that I also kind of were paying attention to. If they weren't ranked, they were very close to being ranked.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely somebody to pay attention to. Okay, jumping on down, Asheville Prattville Christian, and Asheville, according to this, has already gotten the win. So I assume that's probably because Prattville Christian has quite a few holes. And even if they lost 1 or 2 in that situation, It's disappointing that we're not going to see Bryson Pugh and some of the pews and the posts from Prattville Christian. But let's talk a little bit about Asheville. Defending traditional champs, not defending dual champs.
Did they make the finals in the duels? No.
Nope, they did make the final of the duels, and they lost, I think, the Cleburne county. Yeah.
Yep.
So they lost a lot from last year, but there are several kids within that lineup: Nick Williamson, Dylan Harris. Those are the types of kids that are going to carry the mantle for Asheville, I would think. Anybody else that we should be paying attention to as far as the Bulldogs go?
Honestly, Layden Olson, 220 was one of those weights where you didn't have like a supreme stud added. Of course, Travion Bolton from Sac Senior graduated last year, kind of ran the gauntlet at 220. He had actually beaten Carson Hall the year prior. I'm a little sad that I don't get to see the 285 matchup. Of course, I'm always a big fan of heavyweights, but I've seen Mason Wilson,
yeah,
and Aiden Cockrell. Seen Aiden Cockrell wrestle a couple times. He's actually wrestled since youth. Seen him on those little youth brackets, but
and both those kids are ranked, I think. So at least according to the Alabama Wrestling Coaches Association. So it's a little. You're right. It's a little disappointing that we won't be able to get to see that matchup. Yeah, definitely. So Cockrell, you've seen wrestle when he was when he was younger.
I've seen him wrestle from there, and then I've seen him at a couple different camps. Another one that I would have liked to see was I know Allen from Prattville Christian is pretty solid at 170. If he had got to wrestle Dylan Harris, I think that could have been a pretty solid matchup. Just to get the matchups. I wish we had more of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, so it looks like Asheville's waiting on the winner of this duel, Montevallo and Dora. So this one's pretty interesting. Dora obviously took second to Asheville in their region. Montevallo were the Region 3 champs. And I don't want to say surprise, because I don't think Montevallo is a surprise at all. But it's a program that continues to get better and better and better and better. Anything stick out with you in this matchup?
I mean, I can name some kids off from Montevallo, but I'm not seeing them match up too much with Dora. Like the ranked for Dora, I think. I know Rouse for sure, and I think one of the Clayton brothers. But a lot of it'll be some interesting toss-up matches that I'd be interesting. Of course, I think you're going to get a pin probably at 285 with Cole Dennis.
Yeah, who's looked fantastic this year.
He really has. I saw him wrestle Jaxon Olin when it was Jaxon Olin, John Carroll, and Montevallo at a try. It was a quad actually because Carver Birmingham was there. But I saw Cole Dennis hit one of the cleanest fireman carries I've ever seen hit on a heavyweight.
Nice.
I saw the kid from Jaxon Olin's feet went straight up in the air and he out. It's like if Mason Paris hit it on Cassiope.
Oh yeah,
it was clean. He went right to his back. But
very nice, very nice. So I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of toss-up matches here. I think it's going to be pretty close. Dora, I think, is ranked 8th according to the Alabama Wrestling Coaches Association. I don't think Montevallo is ranked. I think it will be some toss-up matches. I think that there's a kid that you're going to pay attention to for Montevallo. It might be Gavin Monk at 126, somebody to pay attention to. And then I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be really interesting. Let's go ahead and let's not pick who's going to advance, but let's throw it out there. Do you think either of these teams can beat Asheville in the next round?
No, I personally don't. Now, like what really comes down to important in these smaller school duels is the fact that you have a full lineup.
Right.
You can fill all 14 holes. Usually you're going to win your duels, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, and then Asheville has wrestled pretty solid for losing as many seniors as they did last season. I don't see anybody trying to surpass Asheville, and I think Asheville makes it to the semis. Yeah.
So if we were to look ahead, if Montevallo does get the win, that Cole Dennis versus Mason Wilson match at that heavyweight might be fun to watch. So, but again, who knows who's going to advance between those two. All right, so let's jump down to the next quad. And the top part of this quad features Destler, Region 8 champs, and New Hope, who lost their hammer very early in the season to, I think, an injury. Was that Ricky Tony? Is that right?
Yeah.
And that probably set them back a little bit. But talk about these two teams and just your general overall impressions.
Sorry, just to not make you think that I'm not listening. I'm trying to look at the ranking that
Okay.
I have, because I know that Leighton Poole from New Hope, I have him ranked. I want to make sure. I know he's not the only person. And then I do have Adrian Whoa,
is that how you say it? Okay.
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But I think those are the guys I have ranked that. And then Destler, I have Ryan Mills at 95, DeQuavius King 60, and
do you have the Jeffries?
Dathan Laster? No, but those are some really solid kids.
Right.
Honestly, I was a little surprised that I didn't have them ranked when I was going back and looking through it. But I know that both the Jeffries, they're both state qualifiers. I believe it was Lathan that placed last year at 1 through 4A.
I think so, yeah.
But I don't think we're going to get to see. I mean, we might get to see Lathan bump up or Lathan wrestle, maybe not, because they have
if one of the New Hope kids bumps up, but I mean, it's hard to know. For me, the general impression is Destler kids always come to battle. They come to wrestle. I don't know that I see very many forfeits from the Destler lineup ever in like the 10 years, 12 years I've been paying attention to small schools in Alabama. They come to wrestle, maybe not exactly in the ARAB mode as far as plug and play, but they have kids and they must have a really good youth program because they have that next group of kids who comes in and gets ready to wrestle. So
Channing Marmon, that was the guy. They had a really good kid named Channing Marmon a couple years ago. Like you said, they have really solid guys who they have at least, I would say, 3 placers every single season.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump down Cherokee County and St. John Paul II. I'll start it off. So obviously, if you think of Cherokee County, which is a pretty new school, right? As far as wrestling goes, you think of the Herrick kids, Cody Herrick and David Herrick. Those two, there's 2 that you pay attention to. St. John Paul, obviously, I think of Jack von Eschenbach, Victor Malone, Jaxon Spencer, who I assume is the younger brother of Jason Spencer. But one of the challenges, obviously, for St. John Paul II is some holes in their lineup. I don't know if they have a full contingent of kids, which could prove to be fairly challenging. What's your impression?
I honestly, I'd probably end up giving it to Cherokee County. Both the Herricks, Joseph Rayborn was another really solid guy. Which, if we get to see a Herrick or a Rayburn versus Malone matchup, I think that'd be pretty cool. Or if we could get a Herrick von Eschbach matchup, would be the bigger ones. But like you said, Cherokee County's a little fresher, a little greener. But I'd probably end up going with Cherokee County.
All right. So out of this quad, are you leaning towards? Okay, I feel like I'm leading you all the time. I'm leaning towards probably Destler, just because I think that, again, if this year's Destler team is like years past, they're gritty, they're in it, they fight for one another. Not to say that the other schools don't, but that's kind of my takeaway with that team. Although I don't know, I think they're the only team out of these 4 that are ranked according to the Alabama Wrestling Coaches Association. So, thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we see a Cherokee County Destler thing, and I think it's a tough fought battle, but I think Destler comes out on top.
All right. And now we move to the last quad. And again, my favorite quad of 1A, 4A. And this is actually, and I don't want to take too long to rant, but this is the part I don't 100% understand. I know because they don't all come together in one location and wrestle it out. But, we get to see Weaver, Cleburne County, AHSAA, and Piedmont. I mean, right in this, they're in this, they have to battle each other once again just to advance. And that's tough because all four of those teams are ranked in like the top 5 or top 6. So anyway, I don't want to get stuck on a tangent, but let's talk a little bit about Piedmont and AHSAA.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Piedmont, I could pick out a couple more of their studs like Isaac Duke, Chase Jenkins, Bagley, and Helm. Now, obviously when you think AHSAA, the big name that comes to mind is Troy Galloway.
Right.
And Caston Bramlett. That's a big name. I think we get a couple pretty solid matchups overall. I think Galloway ends up wrestling 95, and they put Freer at 20. And Freer's also a really solid wrestler. I've seen them go back and forth a couple times this season.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's actually a really smart move for the duel, because I think Helm is probably tougher for Piedmont at 195, and you certainly want to put Galloway on the toughest kid, I would think.
I don't know if you're looking for 6 points. Well, I mean, I think Galloway's kind of been extremely dominant at 195, and I believe he's actually pinned Helm this year. I think it was a close match, but I think he ended up pinning him.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. But I would probably lean more towards Piedmont, kind of have more of a rich history there. Just came off having a state champ. So I'm probably going to go Piedmont in this duel. But
okay,
it's pretty close.
I think it's pretty close too. I think this actually comes down to 1 or 2 kind of toss-up matches. I think Lil Carter at 106. I don't know about Melendez and Bailey at 106 for Piedmont, but I know Carter's is pretty tough at 106. You've already mentioned Case and Bramlett at 120. So I see AHSAA getting some wins in there. I see Piedmont getting some wins in there. It means it's probably going to come down to some matchups that it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. All right, so let's go to Weaver, Cleburne County. So for people who don't know, let's just go a little bit of background. Weaver might have been the #1 team last year, maybe the #2 team in the duels. They ended up winning. Did they have? Yeah, no, Asheville ended up winning traditional. Weaver, I would consider, was probably upset by Cleburne County last year in this round or the next round. And Cleburne County just rode it all the way through and ended up winning a state dual title. So on paper, I don't know, maybe out of any of the classifications, this is the duel that I would go and watch.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the McAdory or the McAdory. Oh, who was it? Wetumpka.
Yeah,
that whole quad with Chelsea and Jasper. I might go watch that one. But I mean, this with who's here, and if you're on I-20, I would probably have to go with this Weaver, Cleburne County. Probably the best matchup of 1 through 4 easily. Weaver. Honestly, last year in the preseason, I had them ranked #1 by a long shot. But Cleburne County might just have their number in the duels, and I'll be interested to see. I haven't looked too much, but history tends to repeat itself. But Cleburne County has a lot of really solid kids. Shamar Hurd, Austin Mayfield, Brennan Butler, Russell Clanton, Colton Mayfield.
Well, any of the Mayfields, right?
Yeah,
obviously. Russell Clanton down at 220. Yeah. So, what's interesting is these two teams, I should look this up before we actually got on and started talking about it. I'm sure they've wrestled in a duel before, or like this year, right?
Mhm. They definitely have. All these I-20 teams, and I would say that I would hate that they wrestle each other all the time, but it's good competition to wrestle against if you're going to wrestle against the same team all the time.
Right. All right. So you just named off some kids on Cleburne County side. Let's go over to the Weaver side, and a couple of kids that you're new. You're watching this duel. Who are you paying attention to?
Oh, that's definitely pretty easy. I would say they're 1-2-3 punch from 60 to 82. Really solid heavyweight, kind of peaks into their top 5. Dalton Fink. I think I have him number 2.
Behind the little Durnlin.
Yeah. And I haven't seen, I thought I haven't seen, maybe she finally came back. I haven't seen Lena wrestle.
Right.
She finally wrestled.
So so I was wondering where she was, but
hurt?
she did show up on one of the bout sheets. That's the reason I have her in at 138. So I don't know if she was out for any particular reason. And again, if you haven't seen the girls wrestle in Alabama, they're gaining steam and things along those lines. But Lena is a fantastic freshman, I believe, right? Isn't she a freshman?
She's either a freshman or a sophomore.
Yeah.
No, she's a freshman because when she wrestled Brody, she was in 7th grade in the 1-5A quarterfinals, and they went to overtime.
Yeah.
But,
so she is one to watch, and 138 is not an easy weight for girls. They have some success down at 106 and maybe at 113. 138, they start packing on some muscle. But I'll tell you what, Lena will go out and give whomever for Cleburne County a match. At least that's my opinion.
She was the number 1 seed in 1-4A. Guy stayed at 138 last year. So sometimes it doesn't end up the way we want it in the postseason, but she definitely still had quite the season in boys at 1-4A.
Agreed. And she won the girls' state title, which was their first one. Coach Fulmer at Weaver, he always kind of poking me a little bit, telling me about different kids. And one of the kids that he says that you should pay attention to is Gianluca Torres at 126. He's a kid that he thinks is getting better and better and better and better. And somebody that maybe I don't know if he wins in this matchup or not or anything along those lines, but maybe a kid that is young now and is going to continue to develop to be really quite good. So, all right. Are you going to take one or the other, or are you going to just kind of let it sit?
I think I'm going to have to let it sit. This is not one that I've called every single other one pretty easily, but I don't think I could call this one.
Okay. I'm with you.
Wait for this one.
So do you think the winner of this matchup beats the winner of this matchup?
Yes.
Okay. But Piedmont did beat Cleburne County. Now I will say Shamar Hurd wasn't, I don't think Shamar Hurd wrestled in that duel. So, what did that lineup look like? Lineups change. Remember, race to 8. Who's going to get those points? Who's going to get those bonus points? This is, I think, is the premier matchup in 1A4A, certainly in the first round. So, all right. So I'm going to take a look at that. That's tomorrow. So we'll know by tomorrow night, kind of which of those two teams is advancing and moving on. So it's pretty awesome. All right, let me come back over. Sorry, I just talk and don't even think. All right, so general impressions of 1A4A as now that we've looked at it.
I think people are too quick to write off 1-4A. I think there's so much untapped wrestling in this area, and I regret not covering more of it when I first started doing this. But they have come again to try to shock a lot of the rest of the state, and I think they're on the come up, honestly.
All right. I agree with you. I love watching small school wrestling. I think it's a lot of fun. I know that small school wrestling, actually in all the states that I cover, have some of the most passionate fan bases around. They really get supportive of their teams and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of fun to go and watch some of those duels in those home gyms. They really bring it and have a good time doing so. All right. So disagree with us? Specifically Jaxon, not me. You wouldn't disagree with me, but if you disagree with Jaxon, make sure you shout him out online and tell him where he messed up. And I'm hoping that in a few days we can get back together and talk about what surprised us, what we weren't surprised about, and what we think the next round will look like. You up for that?
100%.
All right, Jaxon, I appreciate you taking the time. And I'll get these posted, and yeah, we'll watch some wrestling over the next couple of days.
Awesome.
All right, you take care, man.
See ya.
All right, bye.